Mark Lerner says that the Nationals were not ready to sign a superstar this offseason, similar to Jayson Werth back in 2011. And I'm going to tell you, that's just simply false.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, check us out over on Twitter. And of course, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course over on YouTube as well for the video version of this podcast. Later on in today's program, we've got an update on Josiah Gray, who is coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's entering that second half portion of that rehab. And Mark Zuckerman of NASNsports.com, he wrote a great piece about Josiah Gray. So we'll dive into that in the third segment, and it's a good one for you later on. The second segment, yes, we are talking about Nationals ownership again. Is it time for the Lerner family to sell the team? I've got my decision, and I've come to this decision today that we'll discuss a little bit later on in the program. But we start off discussing Mark Lerner's exclusive interview with the Washington Post, and more importantly, it's Barry Svrluga, one of my favorite baseball writers in the DC area. And I'm here to tell you this: whatever was said is simply wrong. And I'll tell you why whatever he said was wrong. But today's episode is, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. So when you go to FanDuel, you can make sure to use Locked On Nationals and bet on all Nationals events moving forward. But Mark Lerner, the Nationals' principal owner, thinks that the Nats are not ready for their superstar. And this is what he said in the Washington Post. Quote, "When Mike calls me in and says, we really need to think about it for next winter, we'll talk about it," Mark Lerner said. Right now, he doesn't think, and I agree with him, there's no point in getting a superstar and paying him hundreds of millions of dollars to win 2 or 3 more games. You've got to wait until like Jayson. Jayson was right on the cusp of the team being really good, and it took us to the next level. That's the ideal situation. It's always on our mind. That sounds nice. And you think about it and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Until you look at the 2010 Washington Nationals. Let me remind you this. This past season, the Nationals won 71 games. You saw James Wood, you saw Dylan Cruz come up, both of those guys being number 1 prospects in all of baseball. Back in 2010, the Washington Nationals did not have that outside of Steven Strasburg. He was the guy who came up that we're all really excited about, and everyone was like, this is going to be the guy moving forward. You had Ryan Zimmerman, who is already an established hot corner for years to come. Other than that, that 2010 Nationals roster had Pudge Rodriguez, someone who had a negative WAR in that time, Adam Dunn, Adam Kennedy, Ian Desmond, another building block, Josh Willingham, someone who is eventually going to be traded away, and Nyjer Morgan. And also Michael Morse in that deal. That team in 2010 was way worse off than what the Nationals are even this past year. Again, of this starting lineup, think of like the building blocks here. You really only had Ian Desmond, Ryan Zimmerman, and Michael Morse. Those 3 guys. If you look at this past season and what the Nationals had, and also let's kind of dive into the pitching here real quick for 2010. You had John Lannon. You had Steven Strasburg come up and make his debut. You had Jordan Zimmerman coming up and making his debut season as well. You had a couple different building blocks, but even then, this Nationals team in 2010 was atrocious. It was really like, yes, you could see the future. You had Bryce Harper winning there at number 1 overall in that 2010 draft. You had Danny Espinosa come up and make his debut as well. You have different pieces like Wilson Ramos come up and make his Nationals debut. So yes, you did see the future. But how was that team more ready than what the 2024 Washington Nationals were? This Nationals team, at some point this past summer, we were potentially talking about a wild card team. And even then, looking at all the building blocks right now, Mackenzie Gore, number 1, CJ Abrams, an all-star, Luis Garcia Jr. coming off a career season, Brady House about to come up and is one level away from making his major league debut, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Jacob Young, a Gold Glove finalist, Keibert Ruiz, someone that you have extended and yet you believe in him being the catcher of the future. And then not to mention the starting rotation, we talked about Mackenzie Gore. Jake Irvin had a little bit of a breakout this past season. DJ Hers looks to be the part. I don't believe any of this, that they aren't ready for any superstar. What are you talking about? In 2010, that team was way worse off than what the Nationals are here in 2024 this past season, entering 2025. The time for the Nationals to go after a superstar and to expand the payroll was really last offseason, not even this. This offseason was an expectation. I expected the Nationals to go out there and be in the market of a Christian Walker. I expected the Nationals to go out there and try for Alex Bregman. I expected the Nationals to try and make a big splash move, whatever it becomes, be a free agent or a trade on the open market. They did none of that. Nathaniel Lowe, while he is good, he's not going to make the world of differences here. I do think he will be a good overall player and he will be a healthy addition to this team. But the fact is, whatever was said in the Washington Post, in my opinion, is totally false. The time is right now for them to sign a superstar. It was not last year. It's right this second. And it's certainly not next season. Because I can tell you this, back when they signed Jayson Werth, we listed off the roster. That was a 69-win team. 2024, we won 71 games. After signing Werth, they went on to win 80 games. And there was a quote later on in the story here to win 2 or 3 more games. Well, that 2011 Nationals team, you saw the future, the foundation there. And, win 2 or 3 more games. Well, really all you had in that 2011 season was Jayson Werth being added there. And of course, there were a couple other pieces as well and some Swifty trades that made the Nationals be a little bit better. But you won 11 more games in 2011. And yes, I think Jayson Werth had a big part of that. Having that culture shift from guys who, no offense to Ryan Zimmerman, but were used to losing, and other players like Nyjer Morgan, who was getting benching clearing brawls at that point. I think Jayson Werth, while he was only like a 2-WAR player that season and was disappointing in 2011, he was still really important to getting the Nationals over that hump. And now we have to sit here today and think, well, what's going to happen in the future? How can you not go out and sign a superstar? And how can you not realize that signing that superstar, whoever it could be, whether it is a Pete Alonso, whether it was a Corbin Burns, or name that player that would have made an impact in 2025. You're not ready for it? That is just simply wrong. You know it. We can all look this stuff up. I've watched this team for years, over a decade plus now at this point. That is wrong. The way that the Nationals should be building this thing is through the farm system, which they have done an exceptional job at over these past few seasons. But now it's up to the ownership. You have to spend your money. You cannot continue to go out this way in free agency and have these coupon deals for guys like Paul DeJong. As much as I like that move, it's not what should the Nationals be doing at this point in time. you should be going after your Alex Bregman. You should be going after Max Scherzer in free agency, just like you did back before 2015. This story, in my opinion, was kind of a slap in the face to a lot of Nationals fans out there. And that may sound harsh, but it really isn't. Because again, if you thought in 2011, when you signed Jayson Werth, that the Nationals were just one player away, you didn't really think that. Because even if you did, then what makes you think differently now? The Nationals are in a much better place moving forward than what they were at that point in time. So the fact is, that is a wrong mindset. And we all know that if Mike Rizzo had the reins, he would be going out there and making aggressive signings. He has done that in years past. He has gone out there and gave a quote-unquote lucrative contract to Max Scherzer, which turned out to be one of the better contracts in Nationals history. The fact is this: you are ready for a superstar, but you're not ready to fork over the money to have that superstar, which would cost a lot of money. And that is a sucky part of this. I want to get into this. Is it time to sell the team? Because in this story as well, really the main gist of it was they have no interest in selling the team anymore. And that they were just kind of seeing what's out there. They weren't really just thinking about it. Like, they just wanted to kick the tires on what could happen and maybe bring in some more partners into the business, according to Mr. Mark Lerner. But is it time to sell the team? And also, there's a report from Tom Lavero about the Nationals that I think you're going to want to hear, and it has to do with this ownership group. We'll get into that after we tell you about some of our very good friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. And are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce servings has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety, and it's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite, and they're nice and salty, and you will love it. And the fact that Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids and no shells, Wonderful Pistachios for that grab and go ease. That's what I use at work, and I simply love it. So get snacking and get cracking with the snacks that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Again, visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Now we get back into it with answering the question of, is it time to sell the Washington Nationals? Yes, it is. And I'm going to go and say this. I'm not going to go too hard in the paint. Like, I think the Lerners right now, where they stand, the time is just run out. Like, it's gone. I think the magic of 2019, that's beyond us at this point. The way that this team has been treated over the past 2 seasons, not really knowing what the future is just enough. And now, yes, we do know that they will keep the team, but I think this story was just a big slap in the face to a lot of Nationals fans out there. And I'm not going to go hard in the paint and say, sell the team every single day. Sell the team. You can go out there and continue to be aggressive and spend your money wisely, not just throw it out to any random players. But if you're telling yourself out there that there is no one who could have helped the Nationals this offseason, and that, yes, they shouldn't have given Alex Bregman $40 million annually, which I agree with. You shouldn't have. But you don't think Pete Alonso would have helped you? You don't think Corbin Burns, coming off a couple Cy Young seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers and the Baltimore Orioles, could have helped you? You don't think going after Max Fried, someone who has been there and done that in October baseball, who has won a World Series, who played for a division rival, you don't think that would have helped? Or God forbid, You get back number 22, Juan Soto. You don't think that would have helped? Wake up and smell the coffee. If you believe in the fact that they're like, nothing could have helped the Nationals this offseason, wrong. You're wrong. The Nationals needed help, and they did not get that help. And with this report from Tom Lavero, let me say this before we get into it. But Tom Lavero has broken some stories in the past about the Washington Nationals, although I will acknowledge he has whiffed on some as well. But I think this is a true story, and that's just my opinion. Supposedly, according to Tom Lavero, Mike Rizzo was at Christian Walker's house and had a deal in place, and Mark Lerner declined that deal. Now, it doesn't say that it directly declined it, but he said, let's move on. This is not going to happen. Christian Walker went on to sign a pretty cheap contract. I'm going to pull up here right now here shortly as I lost my page. But Christian Walker was not going to break the bank. Christian Walker signed a 3-year, $60 million deal with the Houston Astros. Nearly a third or a half of the AAV of Alex Bregman. If you are telling yourself that Christian Walker, someone who is a Gold Glove first baseman, someone who has the potential to win an MVP someday even with his bat, and also a Silver Slugger, someone who has hit 20-plus home runs and 30-plus home runs in 2 of the last 3 seasons, would not help the Nationals, you are out of this world. Like, I can't even entertain that. If you think, well, Christian Walker can't help this team, lies. This is an issue. And this goes into the fact that why I think the Nationals are in the best interest of selling the team at this point. You are not checked in with today's game. You cannot look at this team and say, what do the Nationals need help with at this point? How can we help the Nats win? How can we help this team win overall? We are the owners after all. Number 1, power bats. Number 2, good defense. Good defense is going to help your young pitching staff, which, by the way, the Nationals have a very young pitching staff. And you have a Gold Glover for the past 3 seasons over at first base that you could have signed for $20 million a year while also solving a big power problem with the Nationals. And if this report is true, that Mike Rizzo was there at Christian Walker's house getting this deal done, and you are the one to say, no, we're not ready for it. What are we doing? This is why I do think it is time to sell this team. The operation that has been going on here for the Nationals over these past few seasons is just simply not it. They have said that they are trying to resolve Masson. There seems to be no resolution at this point. And really, what kind of confidence that you have that this will be resolved? The only resolution that will happen will not be between the Nationals and the Orioles. It will be Major League Baseball ripping up regional sports networks and going into their own app. That's what's going to happen eventually down the road, but who knows when that will happen because the owners love these TV deals, at least most of them who benefit off them. So yes, Masson is an issue for the Lerners, and they have acknowledged it. But I'm tired of using that excuse. It was an issue throughout the 2010s as well. It's always been an issue, and it will continue to be an issue. But being a top market in all of baseball, a top 10 market, having pretty solid attendance even throughout this rebuild process, having a solid fan base here in DC with a great location over at Nationals Park and a solid to pretty cool ballpark, and also having West Palm Beach being the home of spring training. It's not that hard to sell players about the Washington Nationals, especially now. And you did not sign any substantial guys. That is an issue. That is why I sit here today and say, I'm done. It is time to sell the team. It's time to move on. We need fresh meat here in DC. And again, Dan Snyder is no longer here to be a shield for owners here in the area. Unfortunately for Mark Lerner, as nice of a guy as he is, the time is over. You had to have spent this offseason in order to win me back. And that is not the case. And if they go into the next offseason and spend, I'm not going to sit here and say, see, they needed to spend and now they're going to be good. No, the time was this season. The time was now. You're going to waste a year of Dylan Cruz and James Wood. You're going to waste another year of CJ Abrams. And you're going to waste another year of Mackenzie Gore. It was amateur hour this offseason, if we're just being honest. And it's not a good look for this organization that used to be so well run and used to be just a good all-around organization from top to bottom. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And I hope to God I'm wrong, but that's just what it feels like entering 2025. So thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Well, next, let's talk about something good. Josiah Gray. Josiah Gray is entering the second half of his rebuild, of his rehab with Tommy John surgery. And Mark Zuckerman of MASNsports.com wrote a really good piece on it. So let's talk about that after we tell you about our friends over at SelectQuote. And in sports, having a winning strategy is everything, and it's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. And if you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million. No medical exam required, and it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Go to SelectQuote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So it's been a lot of doom on today's show, but it's time for some good things about the Nationals. And Josiah Gray looks as if to be really ramping up in this Tommy John kind of rebuild that he's got going on here, as he was shut down this past summer, got Tommy John surgery for a torn ligament in that elbow. And I think this is going to be one of the good stories of 2025, because one thing about Josiah Gray is he is a hard worker, man. And this guy has stayed healthy throughout his career up until this past season. And he was talking with Mark Zuckerman, and I'm sure with other media reports as well. He was restricted to 60-foot throws on flat ground every other day. And this week, he got to move back 75 feet, and he'll eventually get to 90 feet, 120 feet, and full-scale long toss. This is all good, just momentum for Josiah Gray. And if he wants to pitch in 2025, it does not seem that far-fetched at this point in time. And I think just also Josiah Gray's mindset with this rehab process is what you want to see from a team leader. And he talked about just kind of being around teammates and being around players who have also had Tommy John surgery. And this is all great stuff. He goes, I'm going to soak it up as much as I can. He said, there's a point to being around your teammates, being around people that you enjoy, being around. So far these 2 months, I'm going to really enjoy that. This is like what you want to attack your rehab process with. And this is what a team leader looks like. it is nice to see this because, again, going into this season, really over the last 24 hours here at Nationals Nation, you are just kind of been beaten up, and the fans are going after each other with the ownership thing and whatever else out there. But this is something that we can all agree on. It is a good story. You are rooting for Josiah Gray. I'm rooting for Josiah Gray. He seems to be rehabbing really well. And Mark Zuckerman from MASNsports.com, he highlighted that as well. And also Davey Martinez, just great comments about him. It's a feel-good thing. This is what Davey had to say. Quote, "What I love about JoJo is that he's not just here for him. He's here for everybody else. He's engaged with his teammates. He's watching bullpens, and I love that about him. He wants to see his teammates do well." This is awesome. This is what you want to see from someone who has been here since 2021, who has been and seen this rebuild through the worst days and some of the brighter days. But Josiah Gray, that is someone that you can root for and that everyone can root for this season. And hopefully we can see him back on Nationals Park here sometime soon in the month of maybe September over the next year. We'll see what the Nationals decide to do. We'll see how Josiah Gray attacks this rehab process. But thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.